Bruce, I can hear you, and we have a few people already in the online world also joining.
Excellent. Welcome, online folks, wherever. Oh, there's the camera. Welcome. So I really appreciate you coming to our session. The plan today is for our team to introduce this project that we've been working on, this AI co-design project that we've initiated. And then we're going to spend most of our time in interaction, talking about some of the major topics and issues that are motivating this project. And so without any further ado, we'll get right into it. So I'm Bruce Goldstein. I'm an associate professor at the University of Colorado Boulder. I'm a long way, still feeling a little jet lagged. And here are my colleagues. Vicki Goldstein is, well, last name is the same as mine. She's my wife. And she's also my colleague, and it's a conservation leader in ocean conservation. And there's Alex Tingaris. I never pronounce your name right. Yeah, it's Tingaris. Tingaris. And he is my colleague and a technologist who is an expert in artificial intelligence. And so our team today is going to share with you this project. Next slide, please. So this project is being sponsored by a group called the Transformations. And I'm the lead of the Transformations community. It's an organization, a professional association of people who are action researchers and reflective practitioners in the field of sustainability transformations. Our major activity is an international conference series that we hold every 2 years. But lately, we've been edging into being a little bit more of an institute and supporting specifically projects that reflect our ethos of transdisciplinarity and knowledge co-production. So we're starting up a variety of initiatives that involve kind of co-design and knowledge co-production within our community, within the community of practitioners that we support. And this project is one of the first projects in that series. And so this picture here is from our conference last year in Prague. We were also at the same time in Sydney, in Maine, and online at the same time. And we will never do that again, let me tell you. But it was really interesting. We used to move the app, and so people across the world were able to communicate with each other and create a little conversation. We like to keep our conferences kind of smallish, like 200 or less, so we can have a lot of rich interaction, because the spirit of our community is around engagement, sharing ideas and practices, and really kind of mixing it up. So hopefully this session will be in that spirit as well. And there's our website if you want to check us out. Next slide, please. Oh, by the way, Thomas Hasselbuck is my colleague, and he's our operations director, and he's running the online tonight. Hi, Thomas. Coming in from Spain, I believe. So, yeah, welcome, Thomas, and everyone online. So our community is organized around this idea of action research, and also reflective practice. The folks within our community are operating across a variety of the different domains of sustainability, practice, and research. And so the commonality here is that the people who get involved with our group tend to be interested in working on sort of community co-production projects, often with participatory methodologies, visualizations, futuring exercises, that kind of thing, and tend to be really oriented around niche innovation, organizing communities so they can come together, innovate around some kind of sustainability needs, and then share these innovations in a kind of trans-local community among different communities and scale these innovations to impact. And so they're often involved in a variety of creative kind of organizational initiatives, different kinds of structures to support this kind of work, because conventional institutions, universities, conventional government bureaucracies tend not to be very supportive of this kind of untraditional work. So folks involved in our community are both kind of innovators and action researchers, and also looking directly at the community interface and knowledge co-production practice. So we like to summarize it up in these 4 T's. What we do, we're transdisciplinary, we're translocal, we are focused on transformative learning, and we also operate with a kind of maintaining attention to individual innovation and collective action, which we call templates, because we needed a 4T. So that's what we do. Next slide. Again, I mentioned that we've been doing these conferences for the last 10 years or so. Here's some of the places we've been at, and some of our partners over the years. Next slide, please. So, as I mentioned, we're seeing what's the potential of working with a community of researchers and practitioners in having that community itself be a locus for innovation, bringing in all as many folks are interested in our community into community-based co-design projects, as opposed to just sharing their separate projects at our conferences. So here's the AI project is highlighted on here, and we also have a variety of dialogue webinars going on. So check us out after the meeting, but we're going to focus today on the AI project. Next slide, please. AI kind of came out of nowhere and just, had an incredibly disruptive presence in my world and probably your world too. And here's just some of the headlines that we've seen over the last 2 years. I don't know, how many people here are educators? I believe about half. And the rest of you are probably part of the educational system, incredibly disruptive. No more assigning essays or questions that folks can answer at home, right? So it has the potential to have an incredibly disruptive impact on higher education, but also a productive potential. It's certainly something that I use all the time, and I encourage my students to use, but how to encourage them to use it productively in a way that enhances their education is something we're all figuring out. Next slide. There's also websites like this that enable students to, or anyone, to do untraceable AI and replace their own cognition with machine cognition. It's not exactly what we're trying to achieve. Next slide. I don't know how many of you have used these tools, but there's a proliferation of new tools that are really incredibly useful for the kind of work that we do as researchers and practitioners. I've been dabbling, and I used a tool called Elicit. Has anyone tried Elicit? It basically allows you to do a comprehensive literature review at the cutting edge of research in 1/10, 1/50 the amount of time that would ordinarily take to do that literature review, by summarizing the corpus of articles that are out there in whatever field that you like, on whatever topical domain that you're investigating. It's quite incredible. And so I generated a research proposal for NSF on community AI use using this tool, and was able to kind of digest and summarize a literature I wasn't even familiar with in a day, which is sort of AI and community co-design. It was scary how fast I could make myself sound intelligent. Whether I actually understood this material is a different question, but let's not go there for a moment. So there is this proliferation of incredibly useful tools that we're just beginning. I mean, our field is going to be transformed by the sort of second generation, not ChatGPT, the second generation of AI-based tools. Next slide. But as we know, these tools have these implicit biases embedded within them that are often not explicit, not easy to understand. And one way of thinking about them is that they're biased toward people who are Western educated, industrialized, virtue democratic, or weird. And so that is obviously something that we need to grapple with, especially as sustainability practitioners and researchers who are concerned about diverse knowledge practices, about different kinds of cultures and their integrity, about contextualization of knowledge. All the things that are important to us in terms of diversity and inclusion are not something that AI currently, in its current forms, is well suited to address. Next slide. For instance, just a quick for instance. So when you analyze Semantic Scholar, which is an AI-based sort of research literature investigation tool, you can see that the distribution of the material within the database is hugely skewed toward the hard sciences and the biomedical sciences. There's very little of the humanities and even of the social sciences in terms of the corpus of that literature that's embedded in these labels, because it's just not set up that way. And also perhaps that it isn't machine readable or available in the same way that the more technical fields are. And so these biases are something, if we use these tools, we need to be very aware of. They limit the utility of these tools and, and reproduce certain kinds of fundamental biases. Next slide. Also, of course, we're concerned about the huge energy costs associated with the use of these tools. So, the environmental benefits, I mean, the intellectual benefits are perhaps outweighed in some sense by the huge energy costs of using these computerized tools. So here's just some data on that. That every time you generate an image, it's like charging your phone, or every time 1,000 images is like driving 4 miles. So there's a question about whether we need to encourage the use of these tools, or whether we need to ameliorate these harms. Next slide. So all these considerations are kind of in the background of this project. There's perils and promises associated with these technologies, and I'm only beginning to understand these. Anyways, I mean, this is so new that none of us are experts in this field. So we decided we wanted to explore this potential and this peril and see if we could identify ways that this could be a productive tool and minimize the risks associated with the biases associated with the use of these tools for our membership, for our practitioners and researchers within our communities. So I've identified some of the, specifically in reference to the people we serve, reflective practitioners and action researchers. Obviously, from a transdisciplinary perspective, this massive information integration is a real boon, because none of us, if we're transdisciplinary, can really have a handle on these vast range of fields that we work within. However, it's also particularly unsuited to take into account things like local knowledge and tacit knowledge and other things that are really important for members of our field, and non-formalized knowledge. And the fact that it takes the knower out of the knowledge, I think, is really, as a community of practice, something we've really focused on. A community of practice is empowered by the embodiment of knowledge, how people form relationships and maintain this with the community through information exchanges, kind of the currency of a community of practice. So if you're transferring that currency from people to a machine, then the whole kind of machine, the way that a community of practice functions is undermined. People no longer need to contact an individual, an expert, or become part of an expert community in order to become themselves recognized as experts within that community. All the information that they need is machine readable and available. So we're concerned about that decontextualization. Can we address that and still be a functional community of knowledge, a community of practice? So we're exploring that. We've organized a group of about 40 folks in our community, and we have regular meetings, and we explore some of the main issues around this. How can we, as a community and as individuals, as practitioners and researchers, but also as a community of practitioners and researchers, use these tools effectively? And so the 3 main topics that we focus on in this small group of members of our community who are focusing on this topic are: what are the useful platforms and tools? Like, what's out there that we should use, and how does it work? How should we incorporate it effectively and ethically into our work practices? Secondly, what are examples of real-world applications of AI in working with the communities that we serve? AI platforms. For instance, we have an upcoming session on development of an indigenous AI platform in Canada. How does that work? How do you involve communities in the creation of such a platform? And what are the ethical considerations of taking, knowledge that is embedded within culture, that's held, wisdom held by elders, and then transferring it to an AI? And also the broader implications of AI for the transformations that we want to bring about. That's society-wide, not just in terms of our professional practice, but in terms of we also want to understand the big picture of how AI is reshaping the world. So it's a big agenda, and we're having some really interesting conversations about it. But we also are moving beyond just talking about it and sharing ideas about what's out there. And the way this has been enabled is during one of my classes, I was teaching an undergraduate class in sustainability transitions. One of my favorite students approached me afterwards and said, "Would you like to talk about the possibility that I could work with your group that you mentioned a few times?" And I was like, great, let's do that. So we went out for a little chat after class. And lo and behold, it turns out that this student is also an AI technologist of long standing, coming from a family of AI technologists, and in his spare time, also develops AI applications. So we talked about, can we maybe co-design an AI platform for the transformations community using your knowledge? And partnering with your efforts to develop your own career as an AI consultant and member of the industry. You know, have it be a useful experience for him, and also possibility of actually getting under the hood and doing some useful platform development for the community. And he said yes, and there he is. He's with us. So Alex is our partner in this effort, and so he has been working on developing a preliminary platform over the last few months that might serve our community, be custom built for our community and address some of these concerns. And he will now do a quick demo for you and show you what he's got so far, just to give you a sense of the ideas we're working on, the platform we're trying to develop. Take it away, Alex.
Yeah, thank you for the intro, Bruce. Yeah, with the platform, it really is about trying to inspire and show the community what is possible, and go beyond that into new ideas and explore. Gonna try to share here. We'll just switch.
So will you just get off your screen share?
Should be able to see.
Yeah, yes.
And we're gonna switch to screen. So this is right now the prototype that we're working with. We've loaded in just a little bit of the literature in sustainable transitions that has been curated by the community, and a UN report that Bruce has been working on.
The IFS report.
Yeah. And so the idea here is that in order to help researchers who may not have the right language to engage with a different field that still has relevant information in it, we're trying to pull together these different kinds of sources of knowledge into something that anyone with this particular context and mission of finding these crossover transitions type solutions, having a way for them to interact with that data at large to come up with more nuanced research questions. So one question that pops up here, just as kind of this guided example, is personal transformation part of what practitioners mean by sustainability transformations. And when we send this here, take a little minute to load. And you'll see it responds in a nice little compact response, very familiar, like with ChatGPT or Gemini. But you'll see on the side over here that we have a little reference. And everything that's said is grounded in a particular source to the T. And so when we were discussing like trust in like community, obviously what gets published where and who's doing the publishing is a matter of concern at a social societal level for developing knowledge, but then at the platform level and understanding where that knowledge is coming from, when it is going to be a mix of indigenous knowledge or there's different levels to knowledge. Being able to cite exactly where these generations are coming from was really critical to this like core design that we were working with. And so having a way that we can interact with each of these sources and know where this information is coming from as it compiles these different knowledge pieces together it's how the platform's designed to handle everything. So what would be, you can ask Bruce or like anyone, like a follow-up question, because you can ask it, you can have a conversation with it, to a degree. So do you have any ideas on a follow-up or anyone,
Someone give us a
in this field?
transformation question.
Anyone online too? I think if you should in the chat too, if you want to have that open there on the side.
Yeah, maybe ask how this relates to wisdom.
How does this relate to wisdom? I think slow. I'm not used to the keyboard layout. It's a little different. It does take a little second. Personal transformation can lead to wisdom by allowing individuals to gain self-awareness and a deeper understanding of themselves and the world around them. Through practices such as self-care and mindfulness, individuals can tap into their inner wisdom and use it to guide their transformational journey. Additionally, setting personal development goals and contribute to the acquisition of wisdom and getting different perspectives. You'll see again, everything here is cited with those exact sources. We can have, keep on going with conversations and dialogue, but the main work here has been structuring the platform so we can continue to evolve it and build it, which is why with the co-design group that we set up that Bruce mentioned with the 40 or so individuals from the community, the key kind of guiding principle at this very early stage of the platform is making it so that it can scale and expand. And so underneath the hood, I've been told to keep the technical pieces at bay a little bit because I can ramble on about them and through snows for quite some time. In short, we're using an underlying kind of way of working called AI agents, which maybe some of you have heard of, which although the chat interface looks really similar to something like GPT, under the hood, there's actually individual separate AIs that are talking to one another that are specialized in the particular fields that are of interest. So when a community such as one for Indigenous knowledge is trying to create their kind of like corpus of legitimate information, they can do that in their own kind of discrete world with their individuals who are trustworthy. And that can be contained and verified in its own area and then brought together with the other collections of knowledge with their own rules for developing what is true and accurate. And so the point of this is that the underlying structure is meant to allow for a wide array of different ways of understanding the world and pull those together using technology so that anyone, regardless of what background they're coming from, can try as best as we can. We're still in the very early stages of this as a project, but pull together and actually reach and access some of these sources of knowledge that aren't necessarily on their own that accessible. Yeah.
Just a question, does that mean you built your own corpus, or instead this is an interface that's querying different bodies of knowledge?
Right now, we've built our own. So they're smaller, and that was just to get the platform ready. So that's kind of that's step two, and that was part of what the grant was about, and the community group that has been organized is starting to get groups together to see how do we organize these corpuses of knowledge in a way that can plug into this. So the platform is more meant to give structure, and that's been built out right now. And then there's some sample bodies of knowledge. So the UN report being the main one that we've worked from. But we'll be able to expand those and just plug in the other ones as communities form around that. Did that answer your question?
Yes, I've got a follow-up question, but
Yeah, and we can talk about it more after. But yeah, that kind of does it for the demo, but I can connect with anyone afterward too and give access, so you guys can all play with it and yeah, I'll give my information, everything, but that's what we're working on the technical side, and yeah, I'm really glad we worked with Bruce and the transformations community on it.
Likewise. That was a lucky break, eh, running with Alex. So I think one of the most powerful possibilities here is that the community can define what is its corpus of knowledge. And then also, how should these different maybe subsets of knowledge be, as Alex said, kind of what are the rules that govern how this knowledge should be processed? And these can be even subsystems within an AI. So I think that's different from Chat's sort of global approach, where it drags in anything that says transformations on it and would make that available to us in analysis. In this sense, we want to create feedback between the community. What sources of knowledge does the community want to see as incorporated into its sort of gated corpus of knowledge? And so that's just one of the attributes that we're exploring in this co-design phase. We're also thinking about a variety of other things. Before, though, we wanted to get too far into the code design. So I applied for this NSF grant, but we're not going to hear until October. You know what that is. So what do you do in the meantime, right? So we're bringing everyone kind of up to speed in terms of being not only familiar with what the core issues are around AI development, because none of us really know at this point. So we're educating each other, we're bringing in experts to help us understand the issues, but also getting to know each other as a community. So before we go into co-design, we want to create some sense of trust and mutual understanding. So we're having these series of dialogues and interactions. We want to recreate some of that today here, just because it's much more interesting to hear from one another about this than to just hear us rattle on for 90 minutes. So we prepared a series of questions that reflect the kinds of questions that we're asking within our AI groups. They're sort of questions to kind of orient us, but also interesting questions that relate to sort of core questions that we all have about this technology. So for the next hour or so, we're going to guide you through 3 rounds of table interaction, breakout sessions. Next slide, please. So we're going to have, we could do either 3 or 2 groups. Come on. Okay, let's see about the breakout.
I think we can do 3.
Okay, let's do 3 groups then. If you wouldn't mind sitting here, you could help complete with that group. It would be ideal if they were evenly sized. So would you mind joining that group? Because then you'll have 6. 6, yes, that one. Yeah, and then, yeah, 6, 4, 4, that works out well. So we're going to have, it's 3 rounds. In the first round, we're going to have individual reflection, a pair share, so you can pair with someone else at the table, and then a larger group share that's going to be facilitated by one of us 3. In the second round, we'll have individual reflection, and then we'll go straight to group share, so we won't have a pair share. But we're also going to have report outs after round 2 and 3. We thought those were more appropriate for kind of sharing between the tables. So that's the basic structure of our breakouts. Next slide. Also, we're going to be online as well. So online folks, Thomas will be facilitating your online discussion. Here are the 3 questions. Thomas, I wonder if this, we have a, can't see question 3. Well, we'll get there later on. We're going to have another slide with these questions on it. So in round 1, our first round, we're going to ask, how could AI address one major challenge you have in your professional practice and sustainability? So we're going to ask you to kind of reflect on how is this technology going to be useful for me in my research, my practice. The second round, we're going to ask in what ways can AI be used to support and enhance a sense of community within your professional networks? So think about in the networks that you interact in, the local networks of the organization, as well as broader networks professional networks, say your associations, and that sort of thing. How do you think AI could be useful and not harmful in those settings to enhance the operation of those communities? In the third round, we're going to ask you this broader question around risks, ethical risks, biases, and concerns you have about the use of AI in your field, and we'll unpack that question as well. Next slide, please. So let's go into our first round. So facilitators, please join the table. And so our first question is going to be, we're going to start off with individual reflection. So if you have something to write down on, or you just think it over. So without beginning with interaction, individually, think about this question for a few minutes.
So hi, participants in the online, can you hear us? I see Veronica, Rose, Janatip, Tomoko. Any one of you can hear me?
Can we mute if you turn off, we don't want to mute him online though.
We want to
Just mute him so we can talk to the folks online, but we can't hear him. So cut off the volume or.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, don't mute him so he can't talk to people in this room. Perfect. So think about this question for a few minutes. How could AI address
Janatip?
your professional practice and sustainability? And then when we come back, we'll ask you to share your reflections with one person at your table for a few minutes and just have a conversation about it. And then we'll go to a group share. So any questions before we begin? All right, let's begin. Think about it for a few minutes.
So Janatip, can you unmute to speak? So we can test to if the audio works.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Hi.
Hello? Okay.
So welcome and thanks for joining in online. I also just want to make sure if the others one also can hear me. Rosie, I see Rosie.
Oh yes, I can hear you. I can hear you. Hi.
Wonderful. That's good. Yeah, we're testing the hybrid formats, and I jumped in last minute to facilitate that. So yeah, let's have a reflection round, and I mean we have the questions up on our screen. So any first thoughts and on this question on how could AI address one of major challenges you have in your professional practice in sustainability? Would be very curious to hear your reflections. I don't know who wants to go first, Rose or Janatip, if I spell your name right.
It's Rose.
Rose, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Yeah, I'm not even sure how to like think about this, but I, work with different teams around the world, smaller teams around the world, and I'm just thinking, how could we use it to maybe improve communication, or and improve some of our like meetings that we have together that are online, or preparing for them in person, working on papers together. I'm not really sure. Like I haven't worked with AI enough. That's why I'm intrigued by this. That's why I was intrigued by this presentation. So I'm not really sure how to even answer this question.
No, I think that's already a good start. I mean, what I'm hearing is there's some coordination work, taking meeting notes, communications work, creating copy like internally in your organization where AI could support you already. Is that what I'm capturing from what you're sharing?
Yeah, that works. Yeah.
Okay, and maybe also giving the floor to Janatip, or please correct me how I.
Oh,
how you-
yes. For me, I'm not the AI expert of things, but I know it's powerful instrument and technology. But my interest would be how to use the advance in AI to facilitate the big data analysis. So in terms of for example, yesterday I attend AI for helping or warning of disaster things that normally with the usual technology that we have, it might take a lot of time. But in the sense to use AI, I think there are different levels. For example, personal information and research information and policy making type of information. In that sense, I think it would be useful that how can we empower the use of AI to analyze a lot of data and that is meaningful to advance our decision.
Yeah, I think that's a very yeah, powerful point that you're bringing here on generally on data analytics, looking at in which capacity AI can process huge amounts of data. And I mean, you are sharing already a very good example on disaster and disaster warning. And there's a lot of applications out there where this data processing skill of AI or whatever your skill or technology could be used very well. So yeah, thanks for sharing on that one. Also, do we have anybody else in the room? Tomoko said she or he cannot share and has to skip the breakout session. So in meanwhile, I'm sharing also as I'm the operations lead in the transformations community. We also experimenting a lot with AI and Rose, as you do, with coordinating meetings or having meeting recaps, as well as using AI or in the language models also in the communications work. I'm also very interested in the community coordination and AI can play a role in, meaning also how can we look at different matchmaking aspects? We have 4,000 members in our community, and how can we use AI to analyze the set of data? Is it people's work, the abstracts, or the papers that they are putting out there, as well as the biographies, in a way that we can almost matchmake or build different clusters of interests to have subgroups of community of practices. For example, that's interesting for me. And another, sorry, I just look at the chat. And another thing is, as we're having the Transformations Conference, I'm wondering also how AI can play a role in facilitating the conference experience and enhancing the conference experience. Do we have a chatbot that says, oh, the next session is in room whatever at 6 p.m. if you have a question? So maybe we can save a lot of time of answering a lot of individual requests of our attendees. That's two reflections. And yeah, I'll open the floor for another round. Rose, Janatip, if you wanna share a bit more, and I'm just attending to the chat at the same time about the tech.
We also.
Oh, go ahead, Janet.
Okay. Does this also include both questions? Because I think for me, I'm not, of course, familiar with how AI operates, but I know it's very powerful. So the challenge for me, or I think for other people who are not in this area, is how, in terms of literacy on AI, even though we don't have to do it by ourselves, but how can we trust or be able to understand or use it in such a way that we know this is trustworthy, or how this would be addressed in any way. I think this would be a challenge for me regarding this issue.
Sorry, can you repeat what exactly is the challenge? I've acoustically didn't understand the last part.
AI literacy, and the task of the result or interpretations from AI.
Yes, I'm taking a note on that one as well, as we will be also reporting back into the main room. Mm-hmm. Rose, anything from your side? Mm.
That's basically, I was kind of thinking in a similar direction, like for training, if, you know, that your team members, that your coworkers know how to feed the AI, that everyone is doing it in a similar way, and everyone feels like they're coherent in how these systems work. So yeah, that would be my concern or challenge. Mm-hmm.
So also underlining the AI literacy point that Janatip is raising here, right?
Yeah, basically literacy. Yeah.
Literacy. Okay. Yeah, I also see big concerns in the sense of what they call in AI hallucinations, that AI makes things up depending on how it's evaluating data. So especially also the language models. As for example, ChatGPT is not working like a Google search engine, and you ask people about a certain person or a biography, it sometimes just makes up a biography, right? And it just hallucinates certain positions in organizations that don't even exist, right? So I think that's another concern of to understand how do we verify information that AI is giving us or generating for us. I don't know if you had any experiences so far with using the AI tools where you encounter these kind of issues. Would be interested to hear about that.
I have not used it enough to encounter that, so I don't have much input there.
Yeah. And Janatip, in which context did you come across the AI for the disaster relief and the warning and with the data evaluation? Was that a project you were part of, or was it a presentation where you heard about that kind of application?
Okay. Actually, my interest is climate change resilience in terms of adaptation, but I never think of it before and how we can integrate a big data or things to help the community or even the policymakers to respond effectively or use the situation or future scenario in such a way that it provides feedback. Because a lot of things, including also lesson learned or things from different continents that it related, it can be shared or it can be help in terms of support, the warning that we talk a lot, to be exact, we talk a lot about even pollution itself in different areas like particulate matters or PM2.5 or carbon monoxide or pollens. All of this might related to the change of the climate, but how can we integrate this kind of different contexts so that it's less complicated to, for example, for every people, for citizens to protect themselves, or for the doctor to use this information for planning for the future cure or diseases or that kind of thing. So this is just to my conclusion. I'm interested in this because it would be somehow help making the solution more effectively, or even design policy for climate change adaptation more efficiently.
So what I'm hearing is that it also informs or can support decision making, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and in which ways the analytics or the analyzing of big data can improve decision making generally, and AI can also give certain recommendations that go beyond certain disciplines. So almost having like this transdisciplinary approach, looking at a transdisciplinary set of data, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, very interesting point. Do you see any concerns regarding that aspect?
So I took the discussion from the session I attend. They also have a group session like this. So I see a lot of us who are not from AI expert or not familiar with AI is how can we trust the data or the analysis that AI provides, and the ethics about data usage or data interpretation or things that we are really new to this. That's why at the conclusion, so we thought that it would be very useful that different level of AI literacy still needed for different group of people.
Definitely. I think I'm really with you on this AI literacy piece, because yeah, as new technologies are emerging, and you always have the early adopters who are super enthusiastic about it, but yeah, I think the point of how do we get everybody on board that Rose also mentioned, on trusting the data, trusting the analytics, looking at the ethics of the data usage, and I think this will take a lot of time, and there will be a lot of bumps on that road, which will be also interesting to, as a part of the development, how we as humanity can utilize this technology for good, no? So probably with any other major technologies that got introduced, there's this skeptic, there's a certain work to be done to set standards on ethics and ethical use. And I think also the data privacy part is a huge component of that, where we at the current internet use that we had with collecting data for marketing and all these web 2 kind of internet behavior, we are moving to a completely new set of, or a use of data through mass analyzing it and generating new information out of it, such as like recommendations. So yeah, I'm fully with you. Rose, any reflections from your side? As you said, you're a bit new in that field, so also happy to hear from you how that lands with you, especially not being so familiar with the tools.
No, definitely. When you brought up data privacy, I just hadn't even considered that, and that would be very relevant and important for any project that we're working on in our study. So, yeah.
Yeah, I have a colleague. She's a consultant working at the moment for a large corporation as a consultancy, and is doing various interviews, with employees, how they can improve their brand, how they can weave sustainability into the value chains, and all different things. It's just an example here. She said, yeah, maybe I should just put the interviews into the AI and get a transcript out of it, and from there I get summaries what people say, so I don't have to do all the manual work. And I was like, oh, actually we're having internal interviews that this is disclosed information, so can I put it just into that black box of a machine, and it's just company secrets are out there, and that goes for research, that goes for technical developments and all that stuff, no? So it's a very important part to think about it, right? And how much personal data do we put in there? Like, yeah, I want to go to a family vacation. Can you recommend me this and that, right? And I think that's still a very big black box that we cannot even understand. And especially, the people, I say we as non-AI professionals or experts, right? Or like daily users, right? And what does it mean if we use AI agents in Zoom meetings to capture notes. No, where does this information land? What are the privacy policies that we are signing with? We have Alex as a Fathom AI note taker. Zoom does have a note taker. There's a few other tools like Fireflies or Otter. Maybe you have come across them, Rose, for your internal meetings. So yeah, I'm wondering how much company, I mean, secrets maybe the wrong word, but company data actually lands in that bigger pool of accessible data.
Right. I guess there's with these different AI operators, I guess there would be some sort of contract you sign in beginning to use them that, you know, you're okay with your data being private or not private, or, you know, what you agree upon, what the terms are. I would guess. Again, I haven't used AI enough to like really feel like know what I'm talking about here.
No, I mean, this is a dialogue, and I think it's just enriching to have different perspectives from, you know, different levels of how familiar you are with technology. I'm also not a super expert. I'm just following it a lot, and I'm using a few tools within the transformations community. But yeah, I'm just observing a bit how other, you know, technologies, is it cloud structure or like the whole Google workspace, you know, how much did we already sign with our smartphones to privacy policies that we might have not even read in detail, and what information can be will be exposed to the large corporations, right? So definitely something to consider. And looking how GDPR, for example, in Europe, the data protection policy, how long it took to actually have a policy implementation of a certain data protection policy. It takes quite a while to usually that the legislation is catching up with the technical advancement, right?
So what is your particular background in AI? You became the facilitator. I'm curious about that.
I'm facilitator. I'm the events coordinator at the transformations committee, actually. So,
okay.
but how we use AI? Well, I mean, Alex just shared a presentation on the project they're building on. Generally, in our organization, we're using AI a lot to synthesize sessions. So we get a transcript, we synthesize what's been said in the sessions, and can convert them into pieces that we can circulate among our community. We're also using them like you, Rose, to take notes in our meetings, to summarize certain things, also to get support of communications work, creating copy, generating images for the website, and a few other things. And I would like to experiment a bit more with looking at events and the conference that we're having next year, in which way AI can support the conference experience. So that's my personal piece of it. So I'm not an AI expert. Far away from that. That's what we have Alex for. Bruce also has quite a high affinity. So I'm just the facilitator of this breakout room in the online.
Okay. I have what has been your experience with the copy aspect in AI? I'm curious about that, because that is one area that I've had experience with in another company that I was working for, and they were using AI because they were, you know, Spanish speaking, trying to use AI for an English speaking or an English audience, and I found it to be very just, you could tell it was very very evident which copy was written by the AI, and it was very verbose, and took away a little bit of the, you know, in that detection. I mean, it takes away a little bit of the humanistic component that, you know, creates connection, that creates like that genuine trust between communities. So that's also like that you're bringing that up brings up a concern of just like the trust element and the trust aspect. So
definitely, I fully agree with you. So I really like in a way to use it in a way to get a draft, but it still needs that personal note from the person sending it. I'm part of email threads sometimes where just like ChatGPT and ChatGPT is answering to each other. So like, yes, answer yes, you know, and an answer no, whatever. And I'm like, no, there needs to be a bit of a conversation of humans, right? But generally on creating copy, what we found is very helpful is to give a very clear prompt on how the tone of voice should be. And we have a clear prompt of how the TC tone of voice should sound. Is it
Okay, we're gonna move on to our next question. Timing is good.
Oh, are we back?
So next, Thomas, you're all
For the
good?
group.
You're still there?
Yes, we are there.
Okay, next slide, please. So this round, we're gonna handle slightly differently. We're gonna again have a round of individual reflection, just so we get a chance to think about the question. But then we're gonna go straight into group discussion. And after that, we're gonna ask each table to do a 3-minute report out on the summary of some of the more interesting points that were brought up in the conversation. We'd like one of you to be the reporter. And so your facilitator is going to volunteer you into this role, or volunteer you, depending on the circumstances. So we'd like to, for the next 2 rounds, have a different reporter for each round. So if you would be so kind to volunteer, just so you know ahead of time that when you be in this role, you can sort of take notes or take mental notes, just so you have, are you ready to make your reflection at the end? And so the question for this round is, in what ways can AI be used to support and enhance a sense of community within your professional networks? So we're moving up a scale, so to speak, from your own work, your own practice, your own research, to thinking about how do you know, whether your professional network is at your university, your organization, your department, or are you thinking more broadly about your professional associations, like in your community, your disciplinary community, or the interdisciplinary communities that you're involved in, or even in your relationships across with policymakers, if there's some sort of policy coalition you're part of. Think of the primary associations that are meaningful for you, that are really an important part of your work. It could be any scale of organization. Think about, can some use of AI, not just a chatbot, possibly a chatbot, but also maybe some interesting application of a chatbot or some new and emerging use of AI, actually enhance your appreciation, what you're getting out of this association, as well as the interaction of the community as a whole. So before we started, any questions about that question? Anyone want to, any points of refinement or definition? Clear enough? With this question, it's sort of asking about your communities, your associations, your professional networks, whether they're formal or informal. How could AI possibly be a use? Okay, and those sub-questions we're going to save for the group discussion. They're kind of just conversation starters once we get into the group discussion. So you consider taking those on, but focus on that one question in your individual reflection and initial discussion. In what ways can AI be used to support and enhance a sense of community within your profession? All right, let's go into the individual round. So think about that for a couple minutes, and then we'll go into group chat.
So Rose, Genevieve, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
No, I can even see you. Hi.
I know. I don't know why I didn't put the video on before, but there we go.
No problem. I think it's a nice segue from the conversation we just had into the second question, right? I just finished my answer to your question before, and then we can jump into the round 2 if that's okay for you. Does that work for you, Genevieve and Rose?
Yes.
Okay. Not hearing from Genevieve. Yeah. So what helped us was to. Okay, so what helped us in the TC was to define a very clear tone of voice. We say, please be clear, polite, concise, formal, not overly fluffy or whatever. There's one prompt where we exactly defined at least how we would like to sound, right? as a collective, and that made a big dent on what the outcome was on what ChatGPT or other tools we're producing. And that is a is a draft, then you can build up on and, you know, write your things around it. But especially looking at featuring other people's events on our social media channels, like how do we want to share the events? Like, hey, dear members, or hey, esteemed research community, or, you know, like you can influence a bit, like what's the way how it should communicate. And we came across something called the custom GPTs. So basically you have the ability to create your own organizational custom GPT, where you can feed in organizational data like your website or your tone of voice or your brand assets and different things, that this bot then only supports you in or produces language or prompts or whatever based on the data that you have set. And that was very helpful, not to go in this general software, but have our custom GPT at one point. So, and it took like, I think, the technician 10 minutes to set up, which I was super impressive. So I hope this answers your question a bit on, you know, that just sharing from our experience, like how we used it and what helped. And Janet, do you have anything to add there also in the ways you're using it, or and then I think that's a nice segue then into the second question of communication and trust building among community members, right? And how we can support the community. So over to you, Janet, for first round of reflection.
Yeah, pretty much agree. I don't have anything further to add.
Sorry, your audio, I couldn't get everything fully. Can you repeat, please?
Yes, maybe my battery of my headphone is very low now. I don't have anything to add more, so I agree.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for sharing. So yeah, round two. We have another round. So the question is, in what ways can AI be used to support and enhance a sense of community within your professional networks? And we're going first in individual reflections, and then we can discuss a bit in the group what that means.
I was thinking about this after he said it, and I mean, I'm very recently joined a team of a research team that is looking at urban agriculture in 5 different places around the world and co-creating measures of justice and equity in those places. So I'm thinking about, and one of my jobs, one of my tasks is to ensure that we basically to coordinate, to bring these different sites together regularly. And I'm just thinking, like, one of the things that AI maybe could, what would be a neat tool is if, and that's, again, I'm like thinking, okay, the data privacy piece, but like if there was an AI that could capture the communication that I'm having between these teams and be able to remind me if say I go 2 months without talking to one of the sites, to kind of like give those regular pings of like reminders that we have, you know, I feel like this probably already exists anyway, but that, you know, I'm not working with this site, you know, sufficiently as I should. If I could get those little reminders. And then yeah, I don't know. I think that it would be really interesting to be able to use AI to incorporate, make sure you're looking at the justice and equity piece within your teams, not only at the micro level at the sites, but that we are like equitably incorporating all of these very different cultures that we're working with, that their ways of you know, communicating, their ways of organizing are being met, and it's not just this ethnocentric approach, USA approach to teamwork. Does that make sense? I know it's like complex, but I'm just thinking about the ways that we could use this.
Do I unmute? Oh, here. Okay, I can unmute. No, thanks for that reflection. Yeah, I'm just digesting also, especially say like meeting the ways of communicating and organizing in different, let's say, cultural contexts, right? Depends again, like how is the machine trained, right? If that's again this whole Western background, and we also had a lot of conversations around knowledge production, right? And then but who feeds which knowledge, and who decides which knowledge goes into a machine and what's considered as knowledge, right? So yeah, very interesting points that you're bringing up. I'll keep the round flowing to Janatip, also for the individual reflection first, and then we can go in a group.
So I'm not sure what is the last question, but I think I still believe that as a person or as a professional not in AI, I think I see how important that I have to more or less become a user or apply some kind of my expertise with AI, but I'm still on the side of how and learn from others. I hope it would help be more comfortable and being able to contribute to the challenge of AI in my area of interest.
Mm-hmm. So what you're saying is basically the shared journey on developing the AI literacy as well?
Still on that area, yes, still on that side. I apologize. I think my battery is very low on the headphone.
No problem. Now I can hear you much better than before. Rose, can you hear Janatip well?
I can hear her. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, any reflections on that piece that you have, or and generally on maybe the second set of questions that we have below, not only the main question, but like what kind of AI tools could promote effective communication and trust building among community members? Ways that also like adopting context and catering to different needs, right? And also, Janatip, what you said on the different levels of AI literacy and somehow the responsibility to develop that skill. And the second question also on what AI adoption strategies can be employed to maintain the human-centered aspect of community building, which is, I think, something we already touched on in the first round of reflections, right? Looking at only machine-generated outreach communications or whatever, what are we losing there? Where do we use the human touch? And where on the other side can AI facilitate exactly that matchmaking or community building or building connectivity, right? So I don't know, any other reflections on that?
I just want to apologize. I actually have to sneak out. I have to take my daughter to a camp. So okay. I apologize that I have to sneak out now, but thank you so much for facilitating, Thomas, and for Janatip for hearing your reflections as well. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Rose, for joining and sharing.
Thank you for sharing.
So, Janatip, we have a few more minutes before we get back to the main room.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm happy to continue the conversation a bit if you don't mind, because I'm just curious and I want to learn as well. So so just maybe beyond these questions, like from the background and the work you're doing, because I didn't get exactly. You're a researcher as well, right?
Yes, I'm a professor in environmental engineering, and my research nowadays evolve to related to um, climate change enhancing impact to pollution impact and others. But to to answer this, I mean, or to advance the decision maker in this area, I think typical way that we do it would not be, or it would be better if we learn how to work with the different disciplines, particularly the AI people. Because now we talk a lot about uh, data scientists, or even how can we integrate our work with the the health professional, or even the political side who design a policy. So I think this comes to the challenge that what would it be a way that this technology or this way of using information is a hope that we can more or less understand each other and integrate our uh, diversity to be more commonality in terms of the objectives or the goal that we want. That would
Okay,
be a challenge.
No, I hear you, and you say diversity in the sense of on different cultures and also looking globally, right? But also what I'm hearing is like this multi-stakeholder perspective that we the diversity of the policymakers, researchers, and so on to synchronize and create a common language there as well, right? Is that what I'm hearing as well?
Yes, perfect. I mean, I think you capture perfectly the keyword that it's remaining a challenge, but it's also a good
So we
hope
have four
or
tables,
a good side of
one-on-one.
AI.
And with our remaining time, I believe we'll have time to go through and hear from each table. We won't have time for our last question, which I think that's fine. The last question was about ethics and bias. And based on what I first said, I think that kind of got rolled into the first two questions. So let's hear from our table reflection individuals, whoever they were, the volunteers. Would anyone like to begin? Alex, how about your table? There's a volunteer for you.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I was actually a volunteer, but I got the task. So I will do my very best to summarize. Yes, so we talked about to enhance the community and the networks. It would of course be fantastic if an AI can analyze. So for example, I am managing a network in the Nordic countries. If an AI can analyze the activities of all our network, create some sort of linkage map to see where are those, which topics, which questions are the members working on, which they perceive as very important and so on. It can also maybe be used to sort of identify individuals at our member organizations, what they are interested in, and can we mobilize them, can we engage them in a better way. But there are some privacy problems there, I think, and some ethical problems. So yeah, but that could actually help them to connect and engage. Although a lot of researchers already have that, they don't need another gadget to tell them what they are interested in, so to speak. So you have to be a bit careful, I think. But that was also reiterated, I think. Linguistics, sort of, if AI can understand, couple people in a network together, identify new connections and strengthen the network like that. We also had some concrete suggestions here about funding. So maybe AI can be helpful to get an overview of different funding sources and lines of funding. For example, if there was, I think, was an example of a postdoc running out, and who funded that, and maybe we can access funding from the same source, stuff like that. So also maybe creating an overview of funding sources for a network. And another suggestion was to use AI to help organize meetings. We are all really sick and tired of doodle, I suppose. But especially in large networks, this is a huge challenge actually. So if you are to organize a meeting with 300 people in a network, maybe AI could, if we share the information, could then pinpoint time slots where most people can join, and organize that, of course. So that was a couple of things that we suggested, some things that we talked about. We also said that it can actually be difficult to envision right now, even what AI can help us do in the future. It can probably do much more than we think of here today. Let me know if I missed something.
Just checking online. Thomas, can you hear the
Yes, I can
discussion?
hear you, Bruce. Yes.
Excellent. And you can also hear the presentation.
Yes, I can.
Excellent. Okay, let's why don't we jump over to you, Thomas? Why don't we see what your anything to share from online?
Yeah, thanks, Bruce. I'm sharing a short recap of the conversation I had with Rose and Chanatip. Rose had to jump off a bit early, so I'm capturing her points, and I can also pass it also to Chanatip to share her points. So we have been discussing the implications on AI, first internally as an organization, how to create copy or communications material, but we went a bit deeper at one point in Rose's work on how to coordinate different sites, especially if there's different ways of communicating and different ways of organizing. So how can AI support in a way to create coherence or synchronize in some ways and integrate different cultures, which was very interesting. We also talked about the responsibility of learning how to use the AI tools and AI literacy in general, and the levels of different knowledge on AI use within a team, and making sure that there is a certain level and integration of that. And I think on another level of diversity, Chanatip brought a few points up there as well, which I'm just passing over to you, Chanatip, and if you want to unmute and share, that would be nice.
I think you already covered all the important points, but to add on to diversity, what interdisciplinary collaboration to this kind of area would be helpful. This is what we discussed. Maybe you can elaborate on that. Sorry from my microphone.
Thanks for sharing. And if there's anything else, otherwise back to you, Bruce.
Thanks, Thomas. Okay. By the way, there was a list that was going around, and we were just collecting names and emails in case you want to be informed about the AI co-design group. We'll just follow up with you if you'd like to be on our list or even like to participate in our meetings. We'd be delighted to join you, but of course it will be just an invitation and optional. Is that list still circulating? Oh, great. So if you have any interest, we'll follow up with you. You don't have to be totally involved. We can just keep you informed about our progress if you're interested. So make sure you just throw your name on there before you head out, if you'd like. So next group, coming over to yours.
Okay, we kind of came up with two main sort of outcomes of the discussion. One is, first of all, we all have our communities which are described as having the same goal or same aim or same knowledge of something. So AI could help expanding that to, for example, to our other disciplines, so that we can have more cross-disciplinary ideas and sort of cross-pollination in that. That is something, this is a bit more abstract than maybe other having the discussion, but this is something that we were discussing, that we could expand our communities with the help of AI. And I think there was a very nice expression used here, finding intellectual cousins. With the help of AI. And secondly, in general, AI could be of use in summarizing all kinds of things that are going on there, whether it is broadcast, whether it is publications, papers, to help in the community work.
And synthesis of the sort of current state of research.
Exactly, yeah. And because I'm a Finn, I'm speaking briefly. And using the old school I without the A in the notes.
Anything else you want to elaborate on?
Yeah, please.
Cousins, what are your cousins? We're gonna identify that. Yeah, so I have had my whole career to get to know people in consumer psychology. I publish in the same journals, and we all know each other. We go to conferences all the time. I don't know anybody at this conference, but everyone is talking about the same things I've been researching for my whole career. And for the people in sociology, architecture, all those different folks. So if I knew who was out there working on what, that would be super helpful. I was at a presentation yesterday, and they were talking about how nobody has researched such and such a question. I didn't raise my hand, but I felt like saying, there's so much on that in my field. So clearly, since we're focused on the same sort of research questions, but we're in different disciplines, there are lots of people that I'd like to meet, but also like to share about research.
Yeah, and so the lateral exchange between disciplines, between communities.
Exactly,
Really.
transdisciplinary, so it's.
Thanks. And let's move on to our last group.
Yes.
Our presenter, what's your name, please? Anu? Okay, Anu will present for our last group.
Excuse me for my bad English. We summarized our group discussion, and our group discussed about diverse perspectives of using AI in their professional practices, and AI has own advantages and disadvantages. For example, can generate false information, and we also pointed wisdom. And I didn't correctly catch all the wisdom conversations, but wisdom, we have to consider wisdom. And another thing is, are we ready to use AI without any limitation? And also inequality for the access to the information. And also, can AI be the substitute for the real human brain? And without any proper attitude, AI could be the weapon for the good or bad, like a alcohol.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Okay, and any additional information?
No, I think you reached the point. It was AI can provide information and can be used for literacy, but it does not necessarily diminish inequalities. So we also need to build up on this critical thinking and capacitation. So it's not just to give access to information, but to give this to reduce inequalities. So it's not.
Yes, just we think that any tool would be good if really this tool will serve or promote effective the education and the trust building among members from the back. This tool should be not a computer program. This tool can replace spiritual leader of this community, which who aged around 100, 150 years, affiliated during this long period of time, all possible human wisdom, not only from this community, but traveling down different corner of the country and the world and so on. And this tools would be some equivalent to that man. It would be a good tool. Otherwise, it's just computer program produced by someone. It means I always say that, for example, I use it to improve some my text prepared in English. I still good text, perfect English, but not perfect thinking as a need. And therefore, you have to make some difference between tools created by a woman or tool which can be replaced human being. Right? It just more of a personal or something like that.
Yeah, I really relate to that. I've been studying communities of practice. I've always been very interested in learning networks, which tend to be very place-based and context-specific, like firefighters who are working in a particular area and they share their practices. Those practices work relative to their political and cultural ecological setting. And so they have that kind of local wisdom, that wisdom embedded in experience in that particular place, and they pass that along in their local networks. So the question is, how do you create effective supplementary tools to that wisdom and not replace that wisdom or displace that person from a place of respect within their community that the community sustains? Because that's what we're really concerned about, is that the fundamental engine of human communities is this transference of knowledge between generations or between experts and newbies to a field. And if you're disrupting that pattern, you're really, you're creating a disruption in the passage of generations, the continuance of the field. I know in planning, which is sort of my academic field, there's a big concern that there will be no more jobs for new people in planning because all the easy jobs will easily be done by AI. So you won't need to hire planner ones anymore to do the rote tasks that people do at the beginning of the profession. So that concern is kind of at the other end of the spectrum. Instead of replacing the wisdom keeper, you're replacing the neophyte in the system because the AI can do the work of the neophyte. So that kind of concern about the ways that human communities function is really at the root of this proposal. And also we're trying to see if we can figure out platforms that can address those concerns, that can diminish those risks, while at the same time providing all the advantages they identified. So yeah, another thought. Do you have something along those lines?
You're talking about languages.
About the
Cultural there? Yeah, no, it's more.
and we were discussing that you don't know too much about research about Asia or South America. This is the area to the focus.
So the reverse is kind of local knowledge. You want to add that to the other localities,
Yeah.
other places where you have language barriers or cultural barriers and.
Similar interests.
Yeah, it's that Janus space notion of this technology. It's good and bad. And it's the same functionality. It can be good in one context and bad in another. That makes it so fascinating. It's really been an interesting initial exploration. So, if you're all interested in being part of this discussion group, we only connect every 2 weeks or perhaps once a month, depending on whether we have some interesting things to say to one another. So we invite you all to join in the discussion. Put your name down on the list. We'll follow up with you. I guess last slide, Thomas. You can skip over that one. Yeah, so these are just some of the kinds of topics that we're addressing in our discussion group, just to kind of lay the groundwork so we can be an effective co-design group come October. So we move to that next stage of the project. And it kind of reflects a lot of the things we've been talking about today. Sometimes we bring in experts, sometimes we share information amongst ourselves, try to vary the pace. So yeah, last slide. Thank you. And there's my contact information. And if you Google transformations community, you'll come up with our community. We're having a conference next year our last conference was in a variety of locations. So we're doing that again, next year. We're gonna be, it looks like in South Africa, in England, in Chicago, and online. But at different times of the year this time, we're not gonna kill ourselves. So, if you'd like to perhaps participate in that, we're certainly gonna bring the results of this project to the community and think of interesting ways to engage the larger community in the project. And if you have things other than AI that you'd like to share with our community, especially if they're sort of tangible or project oriented, we'd love for you to attend our meetings, whether online or in person, and share your ideas with us. And yeah. So before I conclude and, it's time, any last words from anyone? Anyone have anything they'd like to share?
Mayor,
Yeah.
how do you deal with cybersecurity? I'm sorry, cybersecurity, because AI, we didn't discuss that AI is also, this is a major challenge for all institutions and organizations.
Mhm.
I know it's a very deep issue, but do you have a special discussion group on cybersecurity, or is it?
We don't, but it's certainly a topic we should address. So put it on the list. Thanks for having us.
No, just curious,
Yeah.
because it's a difficult issue.
Oh my God, yeah, and for communities, security. So we're done with our time. Thank you, everyone, for being part of this. We'll follow up here now with us. Yeah. Could we go on the rules, please? And